Good afternoon. This is OPENLINE. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon. And of course, when we say OPENLINE, it is literally that. We bring you topics that will help us discuss social issues in our communities and how these have an effect on us. Talking about effects, today's topic is underage gambling and the effect that it has on society. Now, on a daily basis, about 5 cases are reported to have addiction issues. Now, when you hear someone is addicted, or maybe it's something that's affecting the psyche, you always rush to drugs. But this time, we're talking about the issue of gambling. How is gambling affecting the young people in our society? To help me talk about this, I have CHABALA BWALYA, who is an activist, and also joined by PELEKELO MWIIYA. He is a psychologist and mental health expert. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming through to OPENLINE. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So that is what we're going to be talking about. Issues of underage gambling and the effect that it has on society. As we go on, we will open the lines for you to just come through and interact with us. Give us your comments, your questions, or even just a contribution towards what we'll be talking about. Let's give you a gist and just a summary of how society is behaving towards this, or how this is affecting society in this clip.
At exactly 10:30 hours on Sunday morning, children below the age of 12 were found gathered at this spot awaiting their turn. Gambling machines, commonly known as bonanzas, are being misused by children, particularly in Nsaka's Kalingalinga compound, a trend that has prompted the local leadership to carry out a spot check on these entities. And residents have raised concerns.
Sometimes it's good, but it's bad for children, because sometimes tate wake wasunga ndrama pesa kati ndrama watenga ate pa bonanza sije chemusha kuwala.
Because of these gambling machines, our children are now stealing from homes, and this is not right.
Bazambo nkara chabe mumabonanza tubana tungono iyaye kufunika kapena ba 18 kapena vakuru osatu tubana tungono topunzira sivaenda kumasikuru.
Meanwhile, area councillor Mukube Sanyoni has urged machine owners in his area to desist from allowing children below the ages of 18.
You know, gambling by nature is addictive. So we are really concerned as leaders. But my interest really is on the underage, because gambling is for people over the age of 18. So really, as a local authority, we will mobilize so that we see to it that peace and lawlessness is brought to book.
Misuse of these gambling machines by children below the age of 18 has become a common ill trend that members of the general public are calling for the local authority to at least intervene. For Chimalata, Lusaka.
So just for the sake of those who are joining us just now, this is OPENLINE. We are looking at issues of underage gambling and the effect that it has on society. I have 3 gentlemen in studio. We are now joined by Kennedy MUTALE. He is a parent, and we want to get an insight from that perspective. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the viewers.
All right, so that's Kennedy MUTALE, who's a parent, and then I have CHABALA BWALYA, an activist, as well as PELEKELO MWIIYA, a psychologist and mental health expert. Now, we've just seen that, and I think the most catching thing is when you hear someone say there's a queue early in the morning, first thing someone's doing, but it's just not someone, it's a 10-year-old going to line up to want and play this game that he wants to be playing every day, he or she wants to be playing every day. Maybe I start from that, and why you became an activist. I'll start from here.
Why I became an activist, I think this started back then when I was still in school. I was a class monitor. Then going forward, I joined a student union. The student union, from there, I became the student union president. And out of that, looking at the many issues that were arising within the school environment, that inspired me to be an activist and stand out for people who really don't have a voice.
Okay. And then when you see that kids as young as 10 years old wanting to get into a situation where they're gambling very early in the morning, how does it make you feel?
Well, for me, it grieves me. It grieves me.
Coming from a parent's perspective.
Yeah.
Or maybe you think it's a child being active and contributing to the household income.
Actually, it's a very, very worrying thing. Yeah, because like the activist has mentioned, gambling is actually very, very addictive. So if someone can start, gambling at 10, then basically even the future somehow is distorted. You'll have problems with this child, with the future. But besides that, a child who starts gambling at that age is not just going to affect himself, but the whole family will be affected. Because what will come out of gambling in most cases, if someone doesn't have the money, then you find the child now start stealing from home. It will start from home, then eventually it will go to the neighbors and the whole community will be affected. So which means it's not just this child who is affected, but the whole society is basically affected, including ourselves. So you would find that, we say the future is in the hands of the children. So once, our generation goes, then if you have, this kind of cadre of children like this, then definitely we'll have problems. And if you look at, studies, you would see that most of the people that have, gambling problems, as they grow, you would discover that they have other mental health related, problems. And one of the comorbid problems in gambling is substance abuse. You'd find that people that misuse substances are so much into gambling. Now, it's not just children now, because even adults, even prominent figures, if you go around, you're a journalist, sometimes just try to take time and go into these big gambling shots. You'll find that even big shots, politicians, big business people, are doing that. So now coming back to the children, you'd find that the biggest problem is these things have been now centered in our communities wherever we go. If you go to every community, you'll find that there is these betting games, people are betting and doing all sorts of things. I think it is not good for our country. Yeah.
I like the fact that he brings in the issue of the effect on the mental. What effect does gambling have on someone's psyche? Because I hear, most psychologists or psychiatrists talk about the issue of, there's a certain high or a certain chemical relation, especially when you say, let's say, for example, social media, you get a like, you feel so good and whatnot.
Exactly.
What effect does gambling have on a person's psyche, especially a young person?
Well, to start with, allow me to quickly mention that actually, according to the DSM-5, this is the tool or the manual that we use to diagnose mental illnesses. Gambling is a psychiatric disorder or mental disorder. And like he has mentioned, actually, gambling is put in the same category as substance abuse and drug abuse or any other substance-induced disorder. So we must understand, like you have said, there is a certain high that is involved. Having that on mind, we should understand that gambling actually activates the brain's reward system, okay, just like a drugs. Perhaps this is the reason why it has been put in the same category as a drug. So even when a gambler is still losing, in this instance when we talk about the children, the body or the mind, the brain is still producing the neurotransmitters, right? One which is known as adrenaline and endorphins. So these neurotransmitters actually will encourage the gambler to even play more going forward. And over the time, the gambler will develop tolerance towards gambling, such that even when it is no longer rewarding, they will even take now larger risks of gambling, such as putting in more money. The concept behind gambling is putting in money so that in the end or ultimately you can get a larger amount. For the purposes of clarity, for example, when you're talking about a 5 kwacha, you expect to get a 10 kwacha or a 15 kwacha, all right? So I would say this is the time bomb that we are sitting on. And talking from a psychological point of view, we risk, or rather a lot of young people are at risk of developing chronic psychological disorders, which I believe we are going to talk about.
Yes, of course. How likely are people in schools, even just, young people who are interacting with each other, taking this issue of gambling? When you have your interactions, as you're passing on your message of activism towards so many things, when it comes to this issue, how likely are kids taking this?
Firstly, this is not an issue that begins from outside. It's an issue that begins from the internal setup, which is a home. So sometimes gambling is an idea that's infiltrated in children's brains from within the homes where they're coming from. Sometimes parents are the ones who are gambling. So from there, they'll take it up and bring it outside their outside setup, which is maybe their playing groups or school. So sometimes mainly it's a thing that starts from a household setup and it's taken outside.
Okay. He brings in the household and you fall right in there. I know obviously you can't speak for everybody, but from your own opinion or your perspective, the parents' role in issues such as habits and, sometimes it's kids learn verbally, others is by seeing. Where are parents falling, or where are they going wrong?
Yeah, he's very right when he says that everything starts from home, and it's true that everything starts from home. Now, the responsibility of every parent is to make sure that the children are raised in the right way. So sometimes gambling might not come from the actual home per se, but even the environment itself. So now, how are you going to deter the child from being affected by what the environment is? It's you, the parents, that are supposed maybe to inculcate a certain behavior in these children. So as parents, again, most of the parents, like for example, you are working and your children are home. Sometimes even your husband is also working. So meaning that the children maybe they will remain with maybe your sister, maybe a maid, and then one else. So it is now up to this family to know how to talk to the children, whether they remain with a maid or they remain with any of the people that is keeping the child, so that the child should grow in the right way. Because I can assure you, children have more influence from their friends, the peers, than even from the parents. The parents may say this, but the children will also get other things. So now it's up to us, the parents, to continue, inculcating a certain behavior into our children. Now, I also like to point out this, that, as parents, again, we have thresholds. There's a limit where we can have control of our children, because the moment that a child starts going to school, again, there are certain things that
it's like you read my mind, because I was almost getting to him to ask him that
exactly.
There are times where they say, even if there's a genetic makeup from these two people, that person is also their own person. I don't know if that's what you were getting to as well.
Exactly, because maybe I think even the psychologist here would be able to agree with me that a child, the genetic makeup, is always affected by the environment. Actually, the environment is more strong, than the genetic makeup. Let's take, for example, if someone, for example, you take your child who is 2 years, take the child to your sister who is in the States. When that child come maybe at around 17 or 20, she's not going to be a Zambian or an African. She will be, even if she has your genetic makeup, she will follow the environment from this, from the States. So that's how it is. So the environment has a very, very strong, it has a strong connection to our lives. And this is why now we need to make sure that our communities are taken good care of. People like them who are psychologists, they need to be everywhere.
That's true, because that's a challenge thrown to you. What are you doing? I know maybe, obviously, it can be you're out there, but your social responsibility towards just making sure that some of these problems are not sorted, more reactive. How are you proactive in this matter?
Before I get to that, before I lose my thought, I wanted to make a quick a comment, right, on the genetic makeup and everything. We are talking about the environment that has impact on the child, but allow me also to mention that about 70% of the environments that we are talking about here, actually, we're talking about the family. And so as a family, you cannot run away from that responsibility, and especially as parents. We are talking about children here whose thinking sometimes is not concrete, and maybe a challenge is how much time do you spend with your children, because, for example, the clip that we just watched, we're talking about a child who goes out right on the street at around 6 or 7, all right, meaning there is something that is wrong. And maybe coming back to the question as in how proactive we are. Well, we may not be everywhere, but we are really trying our level best, using the resources that we can to be everywhere and provide these services. And maybe what has been lacking in the recent past has been people not knowing where to find these services and where to find a psychologist.
How challenging is it? Because I can only imagine our society, we are in Africa, and issues that have to do with psych, we usually take a bit, and whatnot, you see. So how challenging is it to penetrate the mindset, the attitude that has already been created towards an issue such as gambling? Because someone will look at it as simple: I put in a 5 kwacha, I get a 10 kwacha, and if I did win yesterday, I'm going to also win tomorrow and the other day, not knowing that how it's now starting to have an effect on the person, and the ripple effect is something else. So passing on this message, how challenging is it?
When it becomes chronic, it is not as it is not easy to stop as one started, because we are talking about issues of addiction. And like I mentioned, gambling activates the brain's reward system, which enables people wanting to do the same activity over and over again. So when it becomes chronic, one needs to undergo a therapy, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and have about somewhere 12 sessions. Now, if we talk about 12 sessions, it means obviously this is not a simple issue that we are talking about. So when it is just starting in its inceptions, it is very easy, obviously, for one to be treated. But when it becomes chronic, it will not be, the treatment will not be overnight. It will take some time.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe before you come in, talking about the parents, like where he mentioned to say, children can come out of homes even as early as 06 hours. Yeah, of course, even parents, I'm not trying to support parents, but, you would find that parents actually there are a lot of challenging, economic and social issues today. So sometimes you'd find that parents are coming out of home around 05. Sometimes they don't even know what is happening to the child. But again, it is up to us, the parents, to nurture our children the way they need to be. But again, the problems, like you gave an example of someone winning a 5 kwacha.
Yes.
Then, when he wins a 20 kwacha, he takes a 10 kwacha home. What do you expect when they have a lot of problems in their homes? So again, we should not just look at it at a level of, the community, at a level. We need to look at it at the policy level. Just recently, I heard that the government has even included the tax for gamblers. Now, it's like you are now promoting this thing to be a legal thing. They have included, I don't know whether it's 20% to gambling. What I expected the government to do was to completely ban that, because most of the people that are running these things are not Zambians. Most of them are foreigners, mostly Chinese. And
now that you bring in that one, there's also the issue people are talking about, where it's a business, it's survival for other people. So policy, business versus society, that's where you're getting into, isn't it?
Exactly. The importance of policy is to help to curtail certain problems where even this psychologist is going to, to fail. Him is not going to force people to follow what, they want. Him, he will just go there to help people to say, maybe if it is an activity like creating awareness, he will go in the community and create awareness. It's up to the people to follow what he says or not. But goodness of the policy is like a law, where the government says we don't want this, then there will be law enforcers who will be able to curtail that. So once you start fighting it at a policy level, as it cascades coming downwards, you will see that all the efforts, these guys can only be supported when the policies are okay. Even us as parents, we also need such kind of things, because sometimes even the best parent will struggle with children. So sometimes we cannot just say, because the parent have been doing this. Today people are busy because they are looking for, ends, to meet the ends, because life is very, very difficult nowadays. So you cannot say I'll be at home or my wife will be at home to wait for the children so that the children can grow up, to be upright children. It's difficult. So this is why everyone should play a part.
The scale, the balance.
Exactly, there should be a balance.
So when he talks about going out there, activism is one of those that you give yourself your time, your resources, and you just want to pass this message on. What are some of the interventions that you've put in to just try and put this message across, the issue of gambling specifically?
So basically for me, I belong to an organization called Media Network on Child Rights and Development. So Media Network on Child Rights and Development has other partners. So when we hear of issues like that, we intervene, of course, maybe by raising awareness, but if an issue is beyond our control, we channel that issue to the relevant institution that's in charge of dealing with such issues. That's why we have people like psychologists like him.
Okay. To what extent do you think the policies he was talking about can actually activate or accelerate some of these things that you've been working on?
Well, I think they would support us really well, because these policies need to strike a balance, just like we have said, between society, even the business venture itself, and the policies themselves. They need to be flexible in terms that they should be able to accommodate everyone, society, the businesses, and even us, the policy maker or the policy drivers, should be able to be accommodated in these fears or the policies that have been put in place.
Okay, great. You are watching Open Line. We are talking the issue of underage gambling and the effect that this has on society. Get us on the line that you are seeing on your screens, and we already have one caller from Chipata. Danny, good afternoon. Welcome to Open Line. Talk to us.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to the panelists.
Good afternoon.
Yes, please. One thing first I'd add to add, I was looking at the policy issue, because if I remember sometime as we were growing up, we are restricted to go into certain places, like even like they say it's a nightclub, we didn't read to say this is underage. So currently what's prevailing is that there is no control. So everybody can wake up, because if you see these gambling machines, they're everywhere. Like principally like where I am in Eastern Province, you would find even, you go in the outskirts, you're talking about by 05, 06, people instead of doing productive work, they're busy, gambling these machines. So what I'm really looking at is if we have to go the way of the policy, because the policy is a guide which will control each and every one of us. So as long as we don't have the policy issue in effect, then I foresee that this thing will still continue. If I can recall what the parent was trying to advise today, and you did mention to say, this one is looking at the business aspect. Of course, for him to set up that business, he was given guidelines. But have we looked at those guidelines which were being given to these people when they entered into these businesses? So let's also try to look at, if we can look at what guidelines have they been given, and I think if we can also try to understand the guidelines having been given, then we can also look at the policy issue. Do they tell you that they should allow everyone to gamble? Because you cannot gamble as the age of 10. That's not right. Because once you start doing that, you will always be forced to go back to say, if I win a 10 quarter, definitely tomorrow I'll go back. And if these are not restricted, then I don't see it being solved at the moment. So I think the best aspect is to look at what guidelines have these people operating as gamblers. Do they allow everyone to stay from their work of obligations, which have been given guidelines and rules? And the police, what does the policy say when it states that?
All right.
So, yes, that's what I'm trying to also to look at, and maybe I can also have views on if people know what guidelines and policies are there for those who are operating the machine.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate. Danny there from the Eastern Province, touching on the issue of policy and agreeing with what you've been saying, the issue of, the location of these machines, also the issue of guidelines, in as much as this person has come in for a business, but then how are the policies guiding this person? And comments that what you've already passed as well, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm more on the immediate intervention that should be there, even as we advocate for the policy. Because, like I mentioned, we are talking about a child here. We're talking about a simple mind. And this child, obviously, most of the teachings are gotten from home, all right? And when they go out there, of course, they're going to come from the society when they get back in the home with a lot of garbage. But in the absence of policy, what are we doing as a community? What are you doing as a family? Danny has brought about critical points of control and restrictions. And obviously, the time that we were growing up, these things were there. Our parents had much control and restrictions regards to going out. So obviously, in as much as I understand that parents nowadays are so much busy, but obviously that should not substitute the time that you should spend with your children. You know, among the effects of gambling, the psychological effects of gambling on the children, we have one which is truancy. When we talk about truancy, we are simply talking about a child becoming a perpetual absentee from school. You cannot tell me that as a parent you do not have time to even get to the school where the child goes. Obviously, when you get to the school, if you are so busy, you'll be taught that this child has been truant. Right, and you will try to investigate by all means why this child hasn't been attending class. So really, it will be narrowed down to how much time as parents, families, and community how much
spending, right?
Yeah, we are
I want him to come and respond to that.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
let's get Tokola from Western Province to come through. Hello, Tokola, talk to us.
Yes, this is Tokola calling from Western Province.
Yes, talk to us, please. Go ahead, we can hear you.
Yes, I want to contribute on the aspect of gambling.
Go ahead.
You know, gambling gives a lot.
Oh my. Sorry about that. Please call us back. We are on the number that is scrolling on your screen. Give us your comments, contribution, and remember we are talking underage gambling and the effect it has on society. Parents, in as much as you want to make that money, you want to do this, but there's some what, like symptoms and evidence that's there for your child. You've talked about absence,
which is truancy, deviance. All those things comes in.
Right. So
where are you as a parent when these symptoms are there?
Yeah. Even if it's making the thousands.
Exactly. So I didn't say that as a parent we need to leave, the children, the way they are. I was just bringing in the aspect to say
the reality on the ground.
The reality which is on the ground. Both parents that are doing well, even those parents that are struggling, even economically, you'd find that they are all out of their homes. But what I'm trying to say is, there should be, a balance, A good parent, I support exactly what he's saying. A good parent should be able to monitor how the children are doing. It's not just from school, but just the general behavior of the children. A real parent who is able to monitor the children, they will know if the children are going astray. But it becomes very difficult for parents who do not monitor their children, because the time that they will realize the children are already gone. So in most cases you will see that most of the parents even are they trying to look for this economic empowerment for themselves and their families.
Let's accommodate Pekelo from Ndola to hear. Maybe they want to talk about exactly what we're at the point that we're at. Hello, Pekelo. Good afternoon. You're through to Open Line.
Good afternoon, Madam Mande. Good afternoon, the panel.
Good afternoon.
Go ahead.
This is a nice topic, actually.
Thank you.
Because these children are the mothers and the fathers of tomorrow. For that clip that you've just shown us on the screen, that will indicate that if these children will be addicted, these are the parents of tomorrow that maybe may squander their salary that's supposed to take care of their children, to take them to school, to pay whatever bills that is in that home. Now, if you're going to let these children to fund these gambling machines, like here in Ndola where I am, I personally have tried to go around Ndola and find that most especially these compounds, they're being placed on an open place where they cannot be restricted them over age. I think my opinion, I think these gambling machines are supposed to be taken to maybe in the bar where children cannot be allowed to enter.
The vicinity of where they are, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay,
because
thank you.
That maybe can help.
All right.
Because for this policy and these others to come in, I think it may take long.
All right.
For the government to react.
All right, thank you.
He's
sharing a concern of something immediate, something we should do right now, and he talks of moving them away, getting them into bars.
Yes. Now, I'll tell you, I'll give an example. He's talking about taking these things into bars. But we also see 12-year-old people in bars. And this is why Daniel from Chipata talked about controls. Okay? The control starts from home, like Muya is saying. But also, the control should also be done, by the local authority, by the government, and all those things. It's very difficult. Like the Ndola man is saying, if you go to Mtendere here, you will see that these gambling dens are found in front of houses, okay? Especially those houses that are along the main roads. So you would find that you will go and find them, not just one, you will find a lot of them there. So that is where the problem is. If we can have those controls, sometimes this is where we are having problems even with our children, So there are certain things that a parent can do, but also what also the state can also do. But also what also, these professionals can also do. We cannot say, sometimes parents, they try to talk to these children. Nowadays, they are human rights. It's difficult from the way we used to grow up. I remember
they'll break the gambling out of you.
Exactly. The time that we used to grow up, there were no these gambling places. We were playing like at King and Taylor. Those kind of gambling. So you run away from home. But now you would find that even the parent, just behind your home, you find that there is these things. So this is what I'm saying. I'm not disagreeing with what they are saying to start with the immediate situation. The laws are here. Even now, we still have the laws. If we talk about the laws,
no, because some of these games actually have a age limit on it. But
exactly. So we are talking about the same policies and laws. So if we have certain limits, what is the law enforcement doing? So the laws are there even now. We are not even talking about there are certain things that they can add. Like if you talk about policies are not laws. Policies, they are statutory instruments where a minister can come up with a law when they see that this thing is not a good thing. But because there's a lot of selfishness even, from, people that are also creating these things. So you would find that because someone is gaining somewhere, they're not doing anything about it. Exactly.
What's the story that moved you the most, Chabala, to prompt you into this stage of activism?
Well,
when it comes to gambling?
When it comes to gambling, I think the issue of where you see somebody being addicted to. Yeah, because sometimes when somebody gets addicted, it weakens the ties between them and society, and many of the times people commit suicide. I think I would give an example of my own former schoolmate. I won't mention the name.
It's okay.
I won't mention the name because in the quest of looking for funds and whatnot, I think they ended up in a mix where they found themselves gambling in one way or the other, and it just went wrong, and at the end of the day they ended up committing suicide. So I think that really prompted me into advocating against the issues of gambling.
Okay. Very sad story there. Gift from Zambezi, talk to us. Good afternoon. Welcome to OpenLine.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Go ahead with your comment or question, please.
Good afternoon, panelists.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much. My contribution is that this underage gambling thing is not a good thing because not only to them themselves, the underage people, but even to the parents as well. They are stealing money from parents' homes. They go and play this gambling in the name of winning. They are not even winning. They are scoring their mind, one. Two, they are involving themselves into theft. So my appeal is that if the law can be enforced, like the same way it is with the bars where they say no underage. Under 18, you are not supposed to go in there. I think that should also be allowed when it comes to gambling issues. I think that's my few contribution this afternoon. Gift from Zambezi. Work well.
All right, thank you so much, Gift. I like the mix. We've got Zambezi, we had the Southern Province, we had the Western Province, we got the Copper Belt, just showing that this issue is really, has got this national, everywhere. It's everywhere, whether it's in the parts of Zambia that's not urban, rural, it's affecting everybody. And talking about affecting the effect of gambling on society from your different perspectives. Maybe I'll start from him, then we'll go to the psychologist.
Yeah, actually, what
in homes, what are the effects that gambling has brought on?
Like I mentioned in my preamble, in homes, one, you find that you'll have antisocial children, The family will be affected. Starting from the individual is gambling, the family, and it goes to society. So that means that, this particular society where this child or where these children are, this is why we have even these fluffies. It starts, from that level. And for sure, this is why we need to, even as we are fighting it, we need to start it from that level. So the effects are quite grave. Like he mentioned, he talked about the neurotransmitters. It is very true because, for example, if you are happy, there are certainly, chemicals that are produced, like he has said. There's also a chemical called, dopamine. In most cases, you would find that when it cannot be produced on its own naturally, it will only be triggered by the activity that you are involved in. And when it reaches that level, it's very difficult, even if the parents try to talk. Still, the guys, the people that are psychologists should be able to help such kind of a person. So this problem is, the way I look at it now, it's a tip of the iceberg. But if no controls will be taking place now, I can assure you we are in trouble.
The problem is grave,
and
it's
growing.
Great.
It's escalating.
Psychological effect.
Well, when we talk about the psychological effects, we are talking about chronic or chronic effects. All right.
What's the worst case scenario?
Well, the worst scenario is someone reaching an extent of having major depression to an extent of even committing suicide.
So that's the level he was talking about.
Yeah. So we find that it affects the mood of a child because obviously when they have a 5 kwacha and puts in, all right, in a game, they're expecting to get a 15 kwacha, a 20 kwacha, and then they do not get anything. So you're going to find that they will have mood swings. And obviously there is also a deviance, and I can safely project that if this is not going to be controlled in the next 2 years, 5 years, we are going to see a lot of children, youths who are going to be deviant. Where is this behavior coming from? It is coming from gambling. Gambling brings about a condition that is known as kleptomania. When we talk about that condition, we're talking about a condition where someone becomes conditioned to stealing, right? They cannot see anything. They will have to get it, all right? And in this case, it starts with money, small amounts, such as 5 kwacha, 1 kwacha. From there, because when we talk about gambling, we are not only talking about money, we are also talking about other valuable items, all right? So they cannot just see anything valuable. They will have to take so that they can go and gamble
just
and
hold
get
your
the
thought
excitement.
there on the list that you have. Let's accommodate our caller from Western Province. Good afternoon, you are through to Open Line. Talk to us.
Yeah, good afternoon, thank you. This is Titus Tobolo calling from Western Province.
All right, Titus, talk to us.
Gambling is something that is very sensitive and it gives a lot of addiction. So when you look at the children being involved into something giving them addiction, it means that it will be a tendency that you will grow from childhood to adulthood. So you discover that the other thing that is really affecting the children is the issue of, child rights. Just because someone has got rights, when they try to be corrected by their parents, they become so much pompous to say, no one can stop me something that I love doing, This particular individual feels that has got child rights that protects her or she from doing something that is against the norms of the society. So this issue of children being protected too much by the state, by the government, it is something that is really bringing a lot of issues even in the home. Look at this. Let me give an example. This child goes with 5 kwacha for gambling, comes back with a 20 kwacha or 50 kwacha or 100 kwacha. Because the parents are denying this child to eat nshima at home because didn't work from morning to sunset, this child will say, okay, fine, that's all right. I have my 100 kwacha. I'll go to the restaurant and buy food and eat and come back to sleep. You see? So this person is growing horns just because I've gone there to get 100 kwacha and come back home. Meanwhile, it's a long life effect that is being imposed on this particular child in the name of child rights. Because I have my own rights, no one will touch me. Something that is very dangerous. Number two, in our homes and our education system, you know, the best education comes from the home. The second education comes from the schools where these children are affiliated to. Exactly. But you discover that there's a problem in our homes and also in the schools where we go. Children are not being taught better entrepreneurial skills to make them make better money for themselves in the near future. One should know to say, this is skill I'm learning. I'll have my own money, my own earned money, hard-earned money, so that I can utilize it better. But because they have gone for gambling, they have earned money easily, they would still want to go back there. So one, our homes should really tighten the system of teaching children entrepreneurial skills on the ground and teach them importance of why they should acquire these traits of entrepreneurship. Number two, education system. Anyway, this is a broad issue, something that is very big. I don't know how our system in the education system will be able to, you know, bring in issue of business and entrepreneurship so that each and every child should have got a tip. Anyway, I don't know how the state, and it's something that is quite big. But I really appreciate the topic is on the point. The other caller mentioned the issue of underage. Please put that in consideration. No underage to play gambling. Chase them from there. Let them be trained starting from there. I know children's rights, but find a better way to move them away from there.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate. Thank you so much. I appreciate their coming through. The issue of rights is coming up. You spoke about it, and you know it's also coming on. But I would like you to exhaust your list. Then I'm going to come to you because the activists are also the culprits who talk about this. Right. Exactly. So I'll be coming to you on that one. Let him exhaust his list. You're talking about, you know, some of the psychological effects.
Yeah, and yes. I ended by talking about the deviancy. It brings about deviancy. Yes. In the society and the condition that it brings about of people, young or rather children getting to a point of stealing. Right, it could be money or any other item. Issues of addiction, obviously, these are issues that we cannot run away from, like others have mentioned. And when we talk about addictions, we are talking about an issue that is not easily treated, especially when it becomes chronic. But then also, there are certain things that parents and the society should look out for, such as issues of drug abuse and substance abuse. When we talk about gambling, it comes with such, right? Now you have heard even the elderly, those who gamble, most of them actually, 60 or 70% of them, they do take alcohol and they resort to drug abuse. There is a connection. So obviously, as a community, as a parent, when you see a child resorting to alcohol, resorting to drug abuse, you should get concerned. Issues of isolation. This is a child who is outgoing, but then they start locking themselves up in a room. You should get concerned and try to find out what is happening. There is also an issue of changes in personality. It alters the way they fit in the society. In other words, they become misfits in the society because we are talking about the mind or the brain getting conditioned to a certain activity. And obviously, when they are not involved in this activity on a particular day, they will be in this episode, all right, where they cannot easily interact with anyone else. We have talked about issues of suicide, all right, and on a daily basis, I deal with issues of people that are addicted and they have attempted suicide, especially those that are between 12 and 25, right? Yeah. So yes, and how does suicide come in? Others reach an extent of risking. Right? For example, they have been, remember we are talking about a simple mind. We're talking about a child. They have been sent, maybe that is the only money that the family has at that particular moment. They've been sent to go and buy bread or vegetables, all right? And they find this machine. They are going to be persuaded that when you put in that money, you are going to get huge returns, and the money goes to waste. Obviously, the only thing that you are going to resort to is committing suicide.
Because you won't know how to explain this at home.
You will not know how to explain this.
Let's hear what Samuel has to say from Zambezi. Hello, Samuel. Thank you so much for coming through to Open Line. Talk to us. Hello, Samuel.
Hello.
Talk to us.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm following the conversation.
Thank you.
And my contribution is that we are busy talking on what these children they are doing or people they are doing, but also we have to look on government. We never knew about the bonanzas and even the pathways. Now, instead of us asking ourselves, the question we have to ask, who brought them for us to know them? For example, I may ask for bonanzas. No one knew about the bonanzas, but the government is the one who has brought it. So we have not to start pointing fingers on ourselves, but also it's the government who's bringing this. And when they bring this, they are just putting them outside where everyone, when it's passing, is able to see them. Do you think that we have to stop doing that? We have to blame the government who brought them. So even if you go to the Betway, every child who doesn't maybe under 18 years is having a phone, a smartphone, is able to Google. Who have allowed this? It's not us, it's the government who have allowed these things. So it's the government who is bringing this website in Zambia. It's not us. So the best way, on my point of view, it's better to block them.
Block them completely. All right.
Otherwise, we're just pointing fingers on ourselves.
All right. Thank you very much, Samuel. There goes back to the issues of policies and how strong and what policies can do to actually hinder some of those things. Before we spoke to Samuel, an issue of rights and how some of these between 12 and 25 are actually thinking, I have the right to do what I want. If I want to go and gamble, let me gamble. How are you passing on these messages of you have the right to your peers as an activist?
So first of all, let me be quick to mention that these same rights that are there, they come with responsibilities. And because you have human rights, it shouldn't be an excuse for you to gamble. And for parents who are thinking, no, children are gambling, because when you tell them, no, stop it, they'll start saying, no, I've got these rights, I've got that rights. On the principle of, on the rights of the child, there's a principle called the principle of best interest. When you look at the principle of best interest, first of all, get that child, bring them close, tell them, okay, I'm stopping you from doing this because it is in your interest. I don't want you to be an addict. We're talking about issues of addiction. I don't want you to become deviant in nature, you know. So we must understand that rights come with responsibilities, and just because they're telling you not to do something, they're not abusing your rights.
Okay, just hold your thought there. We just accommodate our caller from Kitwe. Good afternoon. Welcome to Open Line. Talk to us.
Okay. Inenalanda muchiremba.
I'll London for my translate.
Mami, na ifabaki ashinatu ilishanya. Yo gambling mulelande yo. Hello?
Hello, tuleme mfamkwa.
Nali mwana mailobale tilangishesho. Na mwishi bati Muzambia tatupota kwa mano mukumona abana balekula. Abana balekula tulabalekelera. Nga mwaingira mu makomboni muno. Tuchafu basitisha mundeke village muno everybody kachasopo kali. Muyapa mwalasanga sibwalwa. Muyapa nomba abana banono kutibasira okukopa tifirife wili. Kale bakapokolanga sirafine nga kubekata. apaliponse kubekata nomba this time takuli abana bali ba free money ewatetulande nokulanda apaliponse se pali ubwalwa pali ishi nomba kuti dinani kadi abana kuti bakula bwino aini teti mami teti bakule bwino teti government ile mwena abana ko balenda mu mishini akapokola obushikwa balenda abana bayendera sekyendende mami takuli abakwata abana abalondoloka banono the whole country banono abana balionaika so tigatubana mayirona litutamba ku Busaka mulemona iya ejiya nishituleya kwi nikwisoko tuleya aini tuleya kwisa so ichungulo abana tabekana mu mayanda bapitana fye mu mayanda abana tabeka tetulande nokulanda ndi kuti bakuma mwana wapaneba nga wamba nangu kumukatira otatekele bwino abana tabakakule bwino tatwakakwate ama future leaders nakotela
twamva mkwai twatotela she's surely a mother, and that's a lament, really.
Exactly.
How serious this situation is in, community, societies, and how she also talks about how the 10 to 25-year-olds are the leaders of tomorrow, they're the parents of tomorrow, and these things being within society and what it can do are grave. She really is touched about the issue and the matter at hand. I don't know if you exhausted your point so that we could bring in the parent here.
Well, yeah, that's basically that.
Yeah.
First of all, you must understand that rights do come with responsibilities, and they are enshrined in various documents. So rights are there, yes, but rights are there to protect you and not to cause you to do deviant acts. So one thing people should understand is that rights come with responsibilities, and these rights have not been put in place so that children should become deviant, or they should just become what's the word? They should just become
irresponsible.
Yeah, they should become responsible. Yes.
Very true. When you hear a parent talk like that, for you, the solutions, what now from here?
I'm actually feeling the pain, because if
you could hear it in her voice.
Exactly, that lament, it tells volumes, it speaks volumes for itself. So if we talk about, for example, human rights, the other problem that is there is he's talking about documents. Very few people would be able to read those documents and other things. So one, these people that are activists should be able to also try to create awareness to the people to say, if you are talking about human rights, there should be these responsibilities. Of course, even in our homes, in my home there are no human rights, that I can guarantee. Okay, there are no human rights. I try to give my children certain limits of the way they need to do certain things.
What were you calling it? What he's using for best interest, is it?
Yeah, best interest. Yes,
exactly.
Best interest of the child.
But sometimes I'm not a perfect parent. Sometimes even if you do that to your children, again you still create other problems with the children. Like the mother is saying, during olden times, the time that we were growing, if you are a mother to my friend, you can whip me if I wrong you, or if I wrong society. Nowadays you can't do that. The first person that will react is the parent to the other person. So I think the most important thing that would definitely help us is, one, these things should move away from the communities. If the government wants to be getting a revenue from them, they should not be in communities. They should, be designated in places where they can be done. Participants should be adults, maybe 18 going upwards, because at least 18 we consider someone to be an adult. Two, let law enforcement, take charge. That is the other difference. People can be doing whatever they want, and yet we have people that are supposed to, to go there. I'm not running away from my responsibilities as a parent. I have what I can do as a parent, but there are also other, institutions that should be able to provide help. For example, my home is an institution. A school is an institution, but also the government at that level is also an institution which can provide other things that should be able to help us. Professionals also should also do, their part.
On the part of professionals, your recommendations, what would they be as we are winding up?
Well, me, I am more focused on what we should, what should be first the immediate intervention. All right, and
unfortunately, because of time, I know you've mentioned some of them. And because of time, we really have had a packed show, and it's a conversation that surely can go on. We can catch up online on our ZNBC online platforms, but for now we have to close. Yes, we did do the part 2. OpenLine comes to and close on the air right now, but online we can continue the conversation. On behalf of the entire production crew, as well as my sign language interpreter, Chola Kaoma, thank you so much. Join us next week for another item in the social.